Introduce myself. I'm Julie Sheehan. I direct the BFA in creative writing. I'm so excited to have you all here. We have some current majors who are going to read a tiny little taste of their work, just so you can get a sense of how they sound on the page. So I'm going to ask those on the panel to unmute, and if everyone else would kindly mute. It looks like most of you are muted. But those that on the panel, Jolena, will you unmute and say hello?
Hello, everyone.
We have Ethan is here. Go ahead one more time.
I just said hello.
Excellent. We have two Sophies, just to confuse you all. So Sophie H.
Hi.
And Sophie P.
Hello.
And we have Emmeline, the mysterious Emmeline.
Hi.
Oh, she has unmasked herself.
Yes,
Okay, before we start to hear from our majors, I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about the program itself in the academic sense. So I'm going to share my screen so y'all can see our program brochure. Okay, so the main thing to keep in mind about the BFA in creative writing is that this is a studio experience, right? This is doing the thing itself, producing poetry, producing fiction, writing a novel, writing a collection of essays, writing a memoir, writing a collection of poetry, very hands-on. And so as a studio experience, it's a lot of credits that you take, 60 credits, right? That's a lot of courses, but you as a writer want to be doing the thing itself, writing. So we have you doing a lot of writing. Out of those 60 credits, 40 of them. By the way, a course is usually 3 credits. So you can divide by 3 to see you're taking 20 courses, right? So out of those 60 credits, 40 of them are courses that focus primarily on you producing your own creative writing. And just as in an art program, they would call that a studio. You know, you go into your studio and you paint or you draw or you sculpt or whatever you're doing. In creative writing, we call that workshop. So our workshop courses are the ones where you produce writing and share it with the other people in your class, right? And those are all right here on the brochure. You take 10 of those over your time, over your 4 years as a student at Stony Brook, 10 of these workshops where the focus is on producing your own creative work. We offer about 15 different sections of workshop, and they're loosely organized depending on the kind of writing that you're going to do, right? You'll notice that you take 10 workshops, but there aren't 10 different course numbers in this group, right? You can keep taking forms of fiction, 305, over and over again each semester. There will be 7 or 8 different sections, different workshops under that course number, and you take your pick of them, and you can keep repeating the course number over and over again. We do want you to play the field, so if one of these things, if poetry's your jam, you know, every once in a while we'll encourage you, you know, maybe get out of there and try some creative nonfiction or try some fiction or try some script writing. So we do want you to practice in multiple genres, just like a painter should also be able to use a potter's wheel, right? We want you to be able to have familiarity with the medium outside of your area of interest. We also fully expect you will take the course number that's the most interesting to you multiple times, right? So a studio experience, very hands-on. And in that workshop model, a lot of times you're circulating what you wrote to the other students in the class and of course your professor and talking about it, right? Like how did you achieve the effect that you wanted to achieve with that piece of writing? What could you do differently to achieve a different effect? Those are the kinds of critique questions we ask each other to talk about as readers of each other's writing. You also take courses throughout it at the introductory, intermediate, and advanced level that expect you to read like a writer. And in those courses, you're really focused on how did that author make a set of choices about language to get the job done that they wanted to get done, with the kind of selfish ulterior motive of, I'm going to try that myself, right? So you're reading authors as yourself a fellow practitioner. The last element of our curriculum that is notable is what you do in fall of your senior year. And we have a couple of current majors who, guess what, are in fall of their senior year. So we'll get a chance to hear their perspective on how this is going. And at this moment, you take a cluster of courses that we call the Capstone Cluster. And the main purpose of this semester is to launch you on a full-length writing project. One of the courses that you take is CWL 499. Oops, it's highlighting everything instead of just that. This course down here is your thesis. So every major in creative writing writes a thesis project. It's a novel, a novella, it's a collection, it's a script, a 5-act play or a screenplay. It's maybe a book-length series of poems. It's a collection of essays or a memoir. And you work one-on-one with a faculty member on this, right? So Genevieve Crane, who those of you who got here a little early met, she's advising a student on their thesis. I'm advising Jolena, who you'll meet, on her thesis. And I'll be working with Jolena for the whole year. So we've started already this fall, and then in the spring term, we'll keep working together one-on-one. So this group of courses in the fall of your senior year is meant to support you as you really take that step from a student to a working writer who has to carry the load of a creative project on their own shoulder. We had questions from you all as you RSVP'd about career options and applications of the creative writing major. And I would ask you to take a sort of look at our promises to you. We're really training you to be able to creatively problem solve. We're, of course, training you in expression and persuasion, thinking of that way beyond what, say, a philosophy major is thinking about. A poet is very attuned to the persuasive qualities of a metaphor, for example. Self-reliance, and this senior project is really a mighty test of self-reliance, and community and context, understanding how your writing fits with other writers, how our moment as writers fits with a whole tradition of writing. These skills are very applicable to a lot of different fields. On our website, which you can see down here, stonybrook.edu/BFA, there are a bunch of links to different career choices, right? Like, how does creative writing fit with marketing? How does it fit with the law? How does it fit with working as a technical writer? How does it fit with a myriad of different career possibilities. We'll ask our current majors to talk a little bit about what ideas and formation they have for their own futures. But I also encourage you to go to the website and take a look at some of those links. All right, so that's it on my micro presentation, because what we're really here to do is meet some majors. And so let's get going on that. Jolena and Ethan, let's start with you. And Jolena, will you read a tiny little bit of your work in progress so we could hear you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Julie, for that transition. Actually, before I come and start presenting and whatnot, with the presentation, would you also like us and the other majors to share a screen if we have it up there in case people want to read it as well?
Sure, why not?
Just in case, because I know I'm a visual person, so I'll listen, but it's better if I can see it. So
sure, if you could share your piece of writing, that would be awesome.
All right, okay. Actually, we don't have access to that, so that's fine then.
About that.
I'll just jump in.
Okay.
So, my name is Jolena Podowski. I am a creative writing major as well as an English major, so I double major. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a senior, and I'm going to be reading a piece called Eating Mangoes. I return back to my primal roots when I dent the outer skin of a mango with my claws. My other hand morphs into a knife, and I slice the skin wide enough to peel it. Little by little, I tear away the red-green coating to reveal gold flesh. Before I pluck the final piece of skin, I help myself to a bite. I sink in incisors and begin to suck up the juices, the vampire method, my method, and may I dare to say, the proper method of eating such a fruit. The ends of my teeth feel the grainy pit scrape underneath. Each bite, tearing bits of flesh, leaves residue between my lower set of teeth. I do not look for floss. Instead, I go in. Again and again and again and again. I slowly drain life from my prey. It looks so small in my hand now. Strands of yellow sticks out from various directions. Bald spots reveal the bone underneath. Through the knife that lays on my kitchen counter, I see red lipstick stains on the lower part of my chin. The shade, red rum. And that was...
Ethan, let's hear a little bit of yours.
Okay. Hello, my name's Ethan. I'm a junior now, and I'm going to read a piece from my short story, Dawn of Mulligat. Starts like this. Thank you, Councilwoman. You are most kind. I bowed politely and shuffled backwards out of the long hall, never making eye contact with the Council of the Union. As I slowly backed away, I stole a glance to the side to admire the beautiful, savage artistry of the statues lining the hall of the ministry. Each progressive statue depicted a figure from the sacred texts in varying forms of agony. After what seemed like an eternity, I crossed the doorway at the end of the chamber, and the meticulously sculpted bronze doors clanged shut with enough force to make my knees wobble. Without further delay, I regained my balance, turned my back, and walked swiftly and purposefully away. I could feel the ruby eyes of the council members staring me in the back from their setting on the bronze sculpted door. Soon, I reached the one and only entrance and exit to the ministry and maintained my brisk pace through it. Blinking against the sun, I stumbled onto the street, joining the river of people making their way to their various workplaces, guided by the first rays of golden sunlight. Those first rays of dawn shimmered across the opalescent needle-like buildings in sharp contrast to the formidable ministry of the prophets behind me.
Yeah. Nice. So both of you came to the program from other majors. Jolena, you mentioned being a double major. Ethan, tell us what your major was and why you decided to apply to the creative writing program.
I was an astronomy and physics double major, which going to creative writing is a little bit of a switch. And I mean, it's actually not as big of a switch as it sounds like, though, because in creative writing, you're still thinking analytically, whether or not you initially are coming to the program with that mentality. And I was kind of like leaning towards writing sci-fi anyway. So having a little bit of a science background is really helpful for understanding the mechanics of the world. And the reason that I decided to go about switching was because while I found astronomy especially to be fascinating, I'm not especially good at math. And you find at a certain point when you're going down like the physics and astronomy line that all science eventually becomes math and all math eventually becomes science. And if you are struggling to do some more advanced calculus, it starts to get really tough when that's pretty much the entire class. So I decided to go for something else that I really enjoyed, and also something that I knew I had the potential to be really good at.
Great.
So that's fine.
Thank you. Jolena, can you talk a little bit about the experience of double majoring?
So double majoring has been a very interesting experience. Actually, much like Ethan, though, I did start off as a STEM major. No, my parents are not disappointed in me. I transitioned into the English major first because creative writing has not yet been established as a major. It was only a minor. Yeah, I was still taking classes underneath creative writing just to fill up some time in my schedule. And, once it became a minor, I added it in. And then once it became a major, I joined. And double majoring has been, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I think there are more pros, especially if you strategically line up both majors to like balance out each other. So as Julie said, she is my advisor. I am working on my thesis. I'm a poetry specialization. And a lot of my work involves confessional style writing. And I do incorporate very heavy influences of religion, social, issues that are going on. And I look at my English thesis and the stuff that I read and the class I sign up for. And a lot of the readings, I try to pick classes that will help me further expand my knowledge in my writing major. So as far as workload, it is a lot. It's a lot of books and a lot of reading. So you do have to make sure you block out your time and you time manage properly. But I would like to think so that as long as you get that done, double majoring is not that bad. Honestly, like I said, time management is the biggest thing, but I think it's manageable.
Great. Thank you. Those who are interested in double majoring, English and creative writing are kind of first cousins. If you were interested, going back to Ethan's thing about like double major in physics and creative writing, you'd find that pretty much all of your gen ed requirements were completed also in the major. Our creative writing major covers a lot of your gen ed requirements, and our website, again, will take you through how your gen ed requirements get covered by our major and which ones don't. Math, for example. Okay, let's go to the two Sophies. We're going to do them together so you can tell them apart. And Sophie Haas, let's start with you. Let's hear a little taste of your creative work.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to read a flash fiction piece called Softly, Gently, Softly. The second girl sweeps into arabesque, a sleep dancing marionette. Good, good, says Apolline. Good. Copper-haired faces tilt towards her like sunflowers. There is no music here. Only Apolline's sharp-tongued instruction and carefully meted praise. A meadow that rolls into tufted trees, a sky sifting gray and pink. The third girl yawns her arms upward. The first bounces onto point. Higher, barks Apolline. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Some time ago, Apolline crouched in the wet clay and molded these children, these daughters. She anointed them with slippers and flower-woven skirts. The first thing she taught them was to arch the toes, to turn out the foot. They were pliable, obedient, loose-limbed and eager to spin after the sound of Apolline's voice. Their clay is drying now, features solidifying. Soon they will wake. The fourth girl is the trickster. She is the one whose eyelids flutter, straining against their own web-shut skin. She is the one who snags her searching hands on the bushes. Is she hoping to find a doorway? No matter. The girl will learn. She must. As long as they dance, the meadow will bloom and the rains will come, and the clay will be ripe when it comes time for the girls to mold their own. Apolline looks at her own hands, caking in white cracked splinters. She is the last of her sisters now, ash melting to dust, graves ceaselessly becoming womb.
Yeah, Sophie Picard, one for our freshmen. Let's hear
Hello.
from you.
All right. I'm sorry, I can't have my video up because I'm on an iPad, but I will be reading, so hi. This is an excerpt from a longer piece that I wrote called Humans Are Made of Dying Stars. All right. She never slept right, which probably didn't help the prickliness. She spent late nights people watching on her phone, always had a new story about the stilted houses of Bangladesh, or a girl who was struck by lightning 3 times and claimed it tasted like pineapple. The afterlife of the Babylonians, the healing practices of the Aztec. In the same way, she'd bring up tales from her old school about lockdowns and search warrants and the time her boyfriend puked in a haunted house. She lived off of anecdotes, the fuzzy kind no one checks. She was slippery. Even when she was sitting right next to me, I couldn't seem to see her clearly, and now her memory gutters, swells and fades away like the roar of a passing train.
Nice. So both of you applied to the major. Would you talk about what drove you to such an impossible situation, and also a little bit about what prepared you for creative writing at the college level? And Sophie H., why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I was really drawn to the writing program here because I loved how tight-knit and lively it was, and I just really liked how the community is so active and so supportive of each other's work. And I also really liked kind of that I get the best of both worlds. Like I like the feeling of going to a big school, but also kind of getting sort of like a small liberal arts type education as well. So I really like that juxtaposition, like for me personally. I would say the thing that prepared me the most was reading a lot, because I feel like when you find literature that you really resonate with, that kind of helps you develop your own voice. I also think that good preparation is being open to feedback, because I think coming into the program with like a growth mindset is really helpful. Also, experimentation is really helpful too, kind of letting yourself try out new forms, because once you get into the program, you kind of get to experience things that you wouldn't necessarily think you would be drawn to. But if you kind of are open to going down those new avenues, like you're definitely going to find something you're really interested in.
Yeah. And just about reading as preparation for those who are applying, one of the questions we ask you to talk about in your statement of purpose, where you lay out what possessed you to do this strange and lovely thing. One of the questions we ask you to write about is your life as a reader, because there is such a tight relationship between what we read and what we're inspired to create. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sophie P.
All right, hello. Something that Sophie H, hello, said that it was like me too, like I definitely identified with that, was that Stony Brook is like a huge school, and I always knew that I wanted to go to a really big school. I wanted all the options of the classes that it would provide, and I wanted the resources of a big school. But within it, like the creative writing program is relatively small, and so you get like a small community where everyone knows each other by first name. And it's really lovely. Like we have like a creative writing major Discord, and we all like talk. It's really nice. So that's one of the things that was like most appealing to me. I also really like that they have a master's program here. So if I ever want to like audit a class that's like above my pay grade, if I just want to like see if I can, then that's an option. And I really love that too. Also, Billy Collins is like an associate professor or something here. And I was just like, ooh, like that. Yeah, so those were some of the things that most appealed to me when I was applying here. And for preparing for college creative writing, I I can only speak for my own experience, but I found that in high school, English was usually like the class that most kids considered kind of just like, you know, easy A or whatever, which stinks because it's like a really lovely thing, you know, and you can put like a lot of effort into it. So I found that, you know, even when it's not a challenging course, even when you just need to like do your homework and you're fine, like really putting in the effort and making it challenging for yourself, just like reaching, like, even if you don't have to make that essay, like, even if you don't need to put your full effort into it to get an A, like do, so that you just can like flex your muscle and start to get to know yourself as a writer, you know, because you will have to flex your muscle here. So it's nice to start building that up while you're still in high school.
Ooh, you're getting vigorous nods from other majors on that muscle flexing business. And I just noticed we do have some other first term majors who are in our midst. So shout out to Lydia Green. Do you want to unmute and say hello? To Aaron Fix and to Ivan Vong. You're all, thank you for joining us. Do you want to unmute and just say hello and wave your hands about?
Hello.
Hello.
Yay! So resources, feel free to chime in if you also, you know, wanted to add to the conversation. This is meant to give our interested high school and Stony Brook students a chance to hear from you guys. So thanks for coming and feel free to chime in. Emmeline, we haven't heard from you yet. So
Hi.
hi, let's hear what you're working on.
Okay, well, this is my manuscript. I've changed like the whole course of it and like made an entirely different story. But it's something that I've been working on over the summer like crazy. But here's a little. She gives me her evaluation. I fade off into my thoughts. I hear her speaking, the deep, concise echoes, but I'm not listening. She would never believe me anyways. Sometimes it's easier to think what's conventionally real is real, but my feelings and the dream I had was way more real than anything I've ever experienced thus far. Maybe Nancy needs to open her eyes. His eyes pierced everything I thought was real, and I'm still in shock. Did you catch that? I jolt back to the conversation. Sorry, I'm lost. Let me swig this coffee. I just woke up not too long ago. My fault. I can feel her roll her eyes as I chug the contents of my mug down. Please, jog my memory. What I was saying is that you come up with these lofty scenarios in your head, but it's a distraction from what really needs to be addressed. Let's face the facts here. You're not sleeping. You're easily spacing out. You're hiding from the world. She sighs. I'm really not trying to be harsh here. I'm human. I get frustrated, but it's because I wholeheartedly care about you as a person. I want to see a better life for you, a more fulfilling one that will take you places you've never even considered. But to do that, you must face things head on. I think carefully as to what to say next. I mean, I've been really trying to get in contact with Sean to hash things out with him, but he never responds or gives me the time of day to get anything out in the open. Radio silence. And how am I supposed to resolve what happened to me when it was my fault to begin with? I'm the one who decided to shove all my memories away in drugs after what happened. And that night came back to me by accident, like a dream. That's how my memories are, scattered remnants of images and sounds and smells and feelings and tastes that I can't really piece together. So what's the point in going to the cops with no evidence and a shaky story? If my own boyfriend wouldn't believe me, how are the cops supposed to be on my side? I start to choke and speak shakily. I'm trapped here, in so many fucking ways, Nancy. You just don't get it sometimes.
Nice. So you, Emmeline, and Jolene are both in your Capstone Cluster. So you said a couple of words, Emmeline, about your project. Say a couple more. Tell us who your thesis advisor is and give people a sense of what it's like to be working on a thesis.
My thesis advisor is Megan McAndrew. She's I decided to work with her because she was one of the first teachers I had in the creative writing program, and she kind of encouraged me to apply for the major once it began. I really like working with her because it's like she knows my writing style, and working on a thesis with somebody is interesting because it's like more collaborative than you think. You know, you take all this criticism, but like it depends on you how you take it. I take it as like one of my readers like directly talking to me and be like, what happened? Or like, what happened here? You need to like explain, or, you know, sometimes little fixes, sometimes huge revisions, but once it's finished and you've integrated all of that criticism, it's really, it turns into something way better than you originally thought.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Jolena, what are your impressions? And I'm sitting right here, so you have to say relatively
Can't
nice.
say anything bad about my advisor. No, no. First off, I partnered with Julie, not only because is she like the head and like the poet, but Julie has always been looking at my poetry like for a while back. We've had classes together, and when you pick an advisor and you have to figure out like, all right, this is my manuscript, this is what I'm going to be doing. You need to pick somebody who not necessarily writes like you, but you want somebody who is going to be communicative, who understands your style, somebody you've had experience with before. And from there, you're able to work on the problems or like the little fixes that you have in your writing. As far as my manuscript goes, it's odd because even before I jumped into the major, I've always wanted to write my own stuff. So I've already had been collecting so many pieces of poetry, which I think Julie's a little bit thankful for now. So she's been getting a boatload of them to mark up. And I mean, granted, even if I had just started this semester, it would have been something that we would have been like collaborating on. And when it comes to the manuscript process, it is a lot of your own responsibility. I will just say that your advisor is not writing your piece for you, but your advisor is meant to look at your piece as a reader on the outside, as a writer on the outside, and as somebody who knows you. And like that trilogy combined is what's going to elevate your writing when you do edit.
Wow, yeah. I should be transcribing this and putting it all in the brochure. This is awesome, you guys. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the huge advantage going back to workshop also, where you're producing creative writing and sharing it with other people. One of the advantages of taking creative writing in an academic context is your readers can talk back to you. And that doesn't happen out in the real world. You write something, maybe you publish it. You don't necessarily ever hear what the reader's experience of reading it was like. You hope it was good, but you don't know. And in a workshop setting, you hear directly back from other readers about writing. So, and thesis more than anything else, you get that kind of feedback. So great. I meant to be asking as I went, and I forgot to kind of get a little survey of what do you see as your life after graduation, from people who are looking at next year to people who just started college and maybe have only a sort of fuzzy sense of it. But Jolena, we'll work backward from you. What do you see yourself doing?
That's a great question.
Well, we haven't had this conversation yet either. We will.
I know we haven't. So we're gonna do it in front of everyone. No, I am a very futuristic kind of person, so I'm always thinking about the future. I don't try to put it on the back burner too long. And, you know, it's very interesting because when people ask me, oh, what's your major? And I say, you know, English and creative writing, like I do poetry. They go, you want to be a poet? And they're like, no, I mean, I do, and I will become, I am one, but don't worry, I want an actual job. I want health insurance. I get it. It scares people. And I feel like people underestimate of how applicable, yeah, I can speak English, how useful the tools that we use in writing is in other careers and jobs. So a little bit more about me is that I'm very involved on campus. I do different types of clubs, as well as, student body stuff. And I take, believe it or not, a lot of the tools that I get from my writing classes and I use them in my positions that I have now. I'm the VP of communications, and you'd be surprised of how much you have to persuade and use your words carefully in that type of position, which is necessarily just another job title, which you can use in a real life career. So for me, I've always wanted to enter and try to venture out into the publishing industry, somebody who markets. And granted, I want to be writing on the side, but I do look at other career options. And I feel like there are so many different types. It doesn't have to be a publishing industry. It doesn't have to be the book industry. You can be working with a private company. You can be working for the government, whatever. But that's my goal personally. I want to go into the book publishing industry, just because I feel like it aligns pretty well, and that's also something I can work on the side, my project. But
Yeah.
that's my personal, vision.
Nice. Yeah. Emmeline, how about you?
Yeah, that's a question I've been thinking about for a while, actually. I want to go to a different country. I've never left the country, and I'm considering I'm going to apply for the Fulbright scholarship, and I want to go somewhere that can really enlighten my perception of how I'm going to write my novel, and like experience different cultures so that I can make my own culture, if that makes sense. Because my novel is gonna end up being pretty fantasy oriented. But yeah, I wanna, after I leave the country and do all that, and after I make all those connections, I wanna perhaps go into the copywriting industry or do something that I can apply my writing skills in a professional way, just to get some money, rack up my resume, and just expand the amount of opportunities I can get in the future, so that I can, use it as a stepping stone for something that is more permanent, maybe a teaching position.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And just so you all know, in that cluster of courses that you take in fall of your senior year, one of the things we cover, as Emmeline and Jolena know all too well, is writing the kind of professional stuff you need to apply to a Fulbright, to get grants, to get an agent. So we cover some of the professional writing that writers need to be able to do out in the world, and also develop our research skills to be able to find opportunities for a year of travel, for example, in Emmeline's case. Let's go to the two Sophies. Sophie Haas, how about you? What do you see yourself doing after the BFA?
I would really love to, I'm hoping to apply to grad school and get my MFA. And I'd really like to, probably like my dream job is being a creative writing professor, but I also, I would love to do anything kind of in the editing, publishing industry. I like the idea of being a sort of freelance editor and helping people edit their novels or stories or anything like that. But I feel like no matter what job I land in, I always want to be like a writer. I want to be doing something involving writing in my job, and I kind of I want to have space to kind of do my own work on the side.
And that's one of the things about an industry like the publishing industry, that it's friendly to the working writer, and so is the academic world, right? The academia supports us in our own creative scholarship. Yeah, Sophie Picard, how about you?
Hi, right now I'm double majoring. I mean, I'm a freshman, so it's all not totally nailed down yet, but I'm double majoring in physics and creative writing right now. And
I didn't know that.
Really?
Okay, good. How is it going?
It's going really well. Like Wednesdays are my favorite day for classes because I have like a 2-hour physics class in the morning, and then right after this I have like an hour and a half creative writing class. So it's kind of ideal. And I think that I want to go to graduate school, and I also am interested in linguistics. I want to go to graduate school. I know that. Not entirely sure for what yet. I think something on the science side of things, but creative writing is just, I don't know, while my STEM-ish major has changed a lot over the years, I've always known that I wanted like creative writing. I wanted to study creative writing in college as well. And that it's just a part of myself that I'm not willing to give up, no matter what else I do. I think that I'm going to have a career path that is not unrelated, but separate mostly from creative writing, but it's a part of myself, and I really want to keep writing and hone that craft while I'm here at undergrad, and I have the opportunity to do that. And also in science, it's a little bit tragic how bad at writing a lot of scientists are. So science communication is really interesting too, because a lot of scientists are really good at figuring things out, but they're not great about communicating it to everyone else. And what good is it if only one person knows it, you know? So I'm really interested in that as well.
Well, you're at the right place, because Stony Brook has a Center for Communicating Science that was started by someone at the creative writing program, Alan Alda, who was an actor that many of you may know, is very interested in this subject. And we brought him into Stony Brook he started as a student. He took a workshop with Billy Collins in poetry. And so he started as a student in the graduate program, and then he wrote a memoir. We had him come back and teach memoir and talk about memoir, give craft talks, and then he was very interested in communicating science. And now it's a whole sort of program that trains scientists to be better writers and communicators. So there you go. Ethan, how about you? Life after the BFA.
Hello. Yeah, it's not entirely nailed down quite yet. I have a bunch of ideas kind of floating around. I know like things that I like doing, so I'm kind of like going towards picking out a grad school. I'm pretty sure I want to go for an MFA. I definitely am interested in a potential teaching career. And I also have found, surprisingly, that I quite enjoy editing, which I was not expecting, but nevertheless. And of course, I'd like to be an author as well. So the vague direction that I'm heading right now is like a teaching career where I can kind of write on the side. And we'll see where that gets me. Yeah.
Well, the next thing we're doing in this series that we do at 1:00 on Wednesdays is some of our faculty members who are here. Molly is going to be on a panel along with some other faculty to talk about the different graduate options for a writer. So Ethan, you'll want to come to that and start thinking a little more concretely about what those options are. And writing a statement of purpose is something we'll be doing in our Capstone Cluster. But let's stick with you, Ethan, also, and talk about going back to the beginning of the process, applying to get into the major. And what advice would you give to our guest today about a successful application? What was your experience?
My experience was a reapplication experience. I applied first and didn't get in. My first application was not very good. I put a lot of time into it, but it was like mostly writing that I had done prior to deciding that I wanted to go into creative writing. And I was just, up until that point, I had always been told by like high school teachers that, oh my God, my writing was so good. And it wasn't until I like applied that I got slapped in the face. Wait, actually, maybe it's not good enough and I need to put work into this. So I just waited a semester and kept working on it. And like while I was still taking 17 credits of math and physics, I was up until like 5 a.m. about a week in a row, So I'd like work on my classwork until 3, and then the last 2 hours I'd start writing. And then I kept like revising it over and over again. So the best advice I could give is less in like inherent talent and more in revising. Because however like good or bad your original piece is should be irrelevant, because you are going to have to come back and rewrite it so many times. Even if it's already good, it can only get better. Every time you revise it, you catch an error or you just discover some new thing that you weren't expecting to go in that direction, but it ends up making the piece better, and you can connect with your readers in a way that you weren't anticipating. And that's really valuable. So, you know, leave yourself a solid week after you've written the final. You're like, so you write your paper, you revise it, and then leave a week after your final paper is ready, and then keep revising it every day for the next week, and then you'll get to a project that you like.
And you're talking about the writing sample, right?
Yes, I'm talking about the writing sample as well as the statement of purpose. I revised that one as well.
Yes, indeed. So these are two of the elements we require for the application. The writing sample is going to be 10 to 15 pages of your creative writing, and then this statement of purpose, which is more like a letter to the admissions committee about why you're interested in this and what you hope to get out of it. Sophie, maybe you could say a few words, having just come through the process of applying.
Yeah. Let me look at my notes. So it was very overwhelming for me at first, just the idea of creating like a creative writing resume. So I just started by creating like a Google Drive folder, and I dumped anything that I'd written for anything that might be slightly applicable into this Google Drive folder. And even the stuff that you look back on and you're like, oh, that's disgusting, you know, even you can make like something good out of that, because with your new perspective, you know, you can go back and edit, like Ethan was saying, because it's not about what the first draft is, it's about what the final draft is. So even though the instinct is to just immediately go like trash, disgusting, you can take like one line that you like from it, you can take one idea that you like from it and create something great out of it. And yeah, it is a lot about like a long kind of like steady effort, because I feel like in high school and college, you're told for so many things, you can't cram for this. And for a couple of them you can, but you can't cram for this. So yeah, that's the best advice I have, I think, for it.
Great. How about our other freshmen like Aaron, Lydia, Eve, Ivan? Do you guys have any thoughts on a good advice you would give to someone else who was applying?
My advice would be, like, if you're having writer's block, just write. Like, don't worry about it being good or not, because, like, you can always go back and fix it, but you can't fix something that doesn't exist. So you're better off just writing whatever just to get something down, and then if you don't like it, you can go back and make it better. Like, that's a big problem for me, is like I want everything to be perfect. So like if I'm writing something and I don't like it, I'll immediately just like nope, delete, bye. But it's like, no, I can like just leave it there, and then I can work with it and make it something that I actually like.
Nice. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I want to give the people who've come a chance to ask any questions that you may have. But one last question from me for our panel is, how has your experience been? What course jumps out at you as having been especially useful, or a change in your writing that has happened for you while you've been in the program? Sophie Haas, how about you?
Oh yeah, my experience so far has been amazing. I'm so happy that I got to get the chance to be part of this program, and I feel like my writing style has kind of it's evolved a lot since I first started, and I think probably one of the classes that was most influential. So I've only taken a couple of like workshops so far, but I really liked the first poetry workshop that I did, because I feel like that really shifted the way that I look at poetry and how I can kind of also incorporate that into my fiction. So I think kind of just realizing that you don't have to be sort of like pigeonholed into any particular genre. Like it's okay to be experimental and kind of see what feels the most true to you, and whatever that is, like you can write it and you can follow that.
Nice. Yeah, we're believers in that taking a course outside of your comfort zone is going to have some benefit, is going to redound back on whatever your sweet spot is. Anyone else who has comments on this, just unmute and chime in.
Well, I just want to quickly remind people that when you guys do your majors and we all pick a specialization, you are still required to work in workshop classes that are outside your genre. I think you need at least like 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But I feel like those are so vital, just because even though like, I'm a poetry major, I've worked in fiction workshops. I actually worked with one of Genevieve, who's here with us. And there are so many different tools that even though, I'm not going to be applying like, crazy plot in my poetry, but there are some things that, for example, micro cliches, I've learned that in my classes in fiction, and that's something that I can apply to my poetry. One of my first ever creative writing classes was with Neil Gabler in nonfiction writing, and I've learned about narrative. Am I writing nonfiction? No, but I still use that in my poetry. So that's just like a little reminder that don't think of them as like a waste of time. I actually really enjoy those classes because it's a whole new perspective. I'm challenged to write something out of my comfort zone because fiction is out of my comfort zone, but I still make the best of it.
Awesome. Great. How about you guys? Questions, comments? From Ina, has the workshop redirected any of you guys into a different area of interest? That's interesting, yes. Sophie, are you waving?
I wasn't, but I can say a little something. I'm only doing one workshop right now, and I'm doing 2 writing classes right now, but only one of them is a workshop. But I've never written poetry before, and I'm starting to get into that now, and I never expected to like it. I always was I kind of turned away from it a little bit, I think, because there's like a stereotype of, teenagers writing poetry and just it being a train wreck. But I'm getting really into it, and I'm like discovering things that I never thought I would enjoy, so I'm really liking it. Just because it's required, and you have to write it. And I love it.
Emmeline, how about you? Were you always fiction?
No, I wasn't. I was originally like poetry with like short story fiction kind of thing. But I expanded into so much more, like nonfiction, memoir writing, screenwriting. Screenwriting really helped me with dialogue, and it helped me make my stories and my narratives super visual. Because in screenwriting, you can't necessarily just go into a character's head and be like, oh, this is this is that, You can't just overtly say things. You have to show things without telling them, because it's on a screen. When you're watching a movie, it's not like you can just go into a character's head unless there's like a voiceover or something. So there's completely different mechanics involved. But it's a really useful skill in case you do want to, if you're a fiction writer and you want to eventually make your book into a movie, right? You can then closely collaborate with somebody who's writing your script, or if you want to write your own script. So that would be something I'm considering too. That really changed my writing.
That's a really good example of, and it fits with what you read for us also, which was very dialogue driven, very little I mean, there was one moment in your piece where I think the narrator says, I thought carefully about what to say next, or something like that. Like, that was the only moment that your writing went inside the character, right? And the rest of it was all out in the dialogue. Nice. Other questions from our group? Either in the chat or just unmute yourself.
Oh, Jaden put something in the chat. He talked about not having feeling like he doesn't have like long enough pieces, and that was something that I struggle with so much with my portfolio, and I don't think that I think that I really ended up overcoming it at the end of the day. Like, I think that I took too many excerpts from shorter things, but that was like part of like the feedback that I got from the lovely director Sheehan, to start to work on longer pieces. And I think that it's definitely workable. Like, even now, it's not something that I've talked about in any particular class, but it's something that I'm just learning on my own to work around. And you know, individual scenes and chapters and whatever are much more manageable than a huge piece. I agree with that it's really intimidating to start an entire piece, but it gets manageable here, especially with score professors. So that's what I have to say about it.
It also brings up when you're thinking about which pieces do I want to submit for my application. So one thing to keep in mind, 10 to 15 pages is a ballpark. You don't have to have exactly 15 pages. And if page 13 and 14 are like, yeah, don't put them in, just have 12 pages, right? You do have to get up over that 10-page threshold, because we want to see if you can sustain something for longer than a paragraph or two, right? Now, there are certain kinds of writers who, and we have on our own faculty, Amy Hempel, who's famous for flash fiction, and Sophie Haas read a flash fiction piece for you. Very, very short stories, right? So we admire that. It's really, really hard to do. So you can compile a series of stories, just we need a big enough batch to be able to see what you're up to. And we found that 10 pages gets us a good sense of like where you are as a writer. You can also mix poetry and fiction, for example, or an excerpt from a longer work with a short story that's, you know, only a couple of pages long. I also, none of you mentioned this, but if there's somebody who you trust who knows your writing, first of all, you should ask them to write a letter of recommendation for you. That's what that person should do. And you should share your writing sample with them and say, this is what I'm thinking about submitting for my BFA application. What do you think? First of all, you want the person who's writing your letter of recommendation to have read your work so they can talk about it in their letter. And second of all, if you trust them enough to ask them to write a letter for you, they probably will have some good things to say about your sample. So don't be afraid to show it to people you trust. Another question from Kaylee, I would like to know more about the differences and similarities. Where did it go? Oh, of creative writing minors and certificates. So the creative writing minor here is open to all, as is the minor in film, where you make short films and you do some screenwriting and, you know, storytelling in a visual medium. We run both of those programs out of the same department that the major is in. And if you get into Stony Brook, you can just declare the major in, or the minor in creative writing or in film. And we're happy to have you And you'd have your choice of the same classes as the majors have. We set aside seats in those writing workshops for majors so that you can always get the courses you need, and that you really want to take. We publish our list of, our topics, what we're doing in fiction, what we're doing in poetry. We publish that the semester beforehand and circulate it to everybody. So that you can see what the classes are. If you go on our website, you can look at our past topics and sort of get a sense of the variety of offerings. We also set aside a few seats for minors, and the film courses have a few seats set aside for minors as well. So that's another way to engage with creative writing. You're taking from the same professors, you'll be in workshop with serious writers like the majors we have now. And it's a really fun way to include creative writing in your experience, even if your major course of study is something else. A certificate is a relatively new feature of academia, and it's generally a very short-term course of study, maybe 4 courses, for example, that you take in some kind of sequence that add up to something. And it usually has a pretty specialized topic. We offer at the graduate level a certificate in writing children's books. And that's 4 courses. You have to complete it in a year. And you go through the whole process of writing picture books, middle grade books, YA. That's an example of a certificate. The minor, in our case, is 21 credits. The major, as I said, was 60. So a minor is going to give you a little more of a broader view and exposure than a certificate, which is probably going to be pretty narrow and focused. I hope that was helpful, and that you can't tell that I'm not entirely sure or knowledgeable myself. Okay, here's a question from Christina. I am an environmental humanities major and I'd like to double major. How do the students that have 2 majors find that experience? Also, when is the application due? We did have a couple of comments, and I know some people probably have to leave at 2. So if you have to leave, you'll drop out now. Just sign off. I hope you got a good sense of that experience. Jolena talked about time management. Sophie Picard is a double major in physics. As far as the deadline, in the fall to apply for spring admissions, November 1st, you need to get your application in. If you're a current Stony Brook student, you're not going to apply through the Stony Brook application portal because you already did that to get into Stony Brook. You're going to email our departmental email address, which is on our How to Apply page. For those of you who are in high school, you're going to upload your creative writing application right alongside with your Stony Brook application. So if you're using the Common App, as soon as you choose creative writing from your drop-down menu of possible majors, the major you're interested in, it'll ask you to upload your statement of purpose and your writing portfolio. So it'll prompt you right in there. It'll all be in one big thing. Your deadline is January 15th for fall admission to next fall. Hold on, scrolling back. How many people apply? Wait, did I miss someone? I missed Tiffany. Tiffany, also curious about the differences between minors and degrees. I am in Chem ATM and think I want to stick with it, but I love writing, so would then be considering double majoring or a minor. Not sure which would be best, pros and cons. So once again, our major is 60 credits. It's pretty demanding. If you're already staring down if you're, say, a junior, it's probably too late to try to get 60 credits of creative writing into your remaining 3 semesters. Like, that's probably not going to happen. If you're a sophomore, you can make it work, especially if you've already started taking creative writing. Maybe you've already taken the intro course, you've already taken the intro to contemporary literature, maybe you're taking a writing workshop now. You're in good shape to do it. And then Jolina's advice about really figuring out, mapping how these 2 degrees work together are. But the minor is a great way to stay involved with creative writing while majoring in something else. So we can have a conversation at, please do feel free to email me, and I'll put my email in the chat right now. And we can, I'm happy to have deeper conversations with you about this. And I'll stick around and answer questions. I was wondering how many people apply to this major. That was the next one, right? Yes. Apply to the major each year. So this past year is our first year having it. So we had about 140 high school students applying. We have a class of 10, right? Is that right? So all told right now, in all 4 years of the program, we're at like 40 students. I think I should have looked this up. It's not even that hard a number to remember, but I think that's where we are. We will max out at 25 per year. That's the most we will allow at a given time. So we're slowly building out to having 25 per year, which means 100 students at any given time are majoring in creative writing. So again, a small program so that we can be a tight-knit community inside this glorious big university. Do you find it hard to write on schedule when before college you were usually able to write as you please? That's such a good question from James. I find that sometimes I have more ideas than other times. So how do you work when you're creatively drained? Who would like to take? Sophie.
Hi, I actually, I find that it's kind of easier for me to write in college, actually, because like in high school, I don't know why, but I really wasn't able to write all that much. And I feel like when you're, I mean, a lot of it is being in the creative writing program, so it's kind of like you have I think having deadlines and structure to your writing can help, because I think when you're trying to do things on your own schedule, at least for me, it's not always, it doesn't always give you the motivation you need to really see a project through. And I think that having the setup of the creative writing program was really helpful for me, kind of like in my productivity.
I'd also recommend there are lots of after-school workshops. Libraries will often have writing groups that you can join just to see if your muse likes being on a schedule. If your muse hates it, then you probably don't want to major in creative writing. You'll be miserable. But you know, you can test drive that. Ahead of time. And you can, if you're a current Stony Brook student, take a creative writing class, take 202 and see what it's like to write on a schedule. And then you'll very quickly find out if that's for you or not. Yeah, and for me, a deadline is a great honor. I wish people still gave them to me. I wish I had a professor assigning me writing. You know, it would help me write. This is from Anyan, how would I try to get across the point of wanting to switch to a creative writing BFA when my parents fully expect me to become a doctor? Oh, We have a major who's navigated this. She applied and was accepted to the major before talking to her parents about this, who fully expected her to become a doctor. And she's double majoring in psychology with an idea of clinical practice and creative writing. Another world in which communication, clarity of language, super important as a therapist, for example. So that's another, I'm happy to talk through that kind of difficult challenge with your parents to the extent that I can. One of the things that you learn in college is who you are as opposed to who people thought you were. So congratulations for having that dilemma. It's right on schedule in a way, but a difficult challenge. Was it a struggle for you guys to share your writing with your class? Usually I feel I bear my soul in my writing, so it's sometimes difficult for me to share my writing with too many people. Yeah, Jolene, you're nodding at this. Do you want to say a few words?
Yeah. So when it comes to that, I want to first let you guys know, no one is going to force you to say anything that you don't want to say. All of our professors actually usually establish the forefront rules of respect and guidelines. Even during mainly workshop classes are can be very intense, but usually whatever happens there stays there. And again, they're not going to force you to say anything. With that being said, for me, my personal experience with it took a bit. I do like to talk, so that's why I'm here. But even being extroverted or introverted, it is sometimes hard to talk about experiences that you've written. And again, the character is not directly associated with you, or the narrator is not associated with you. And again, your workshop peers will understand that. So whatever you write doesn't mean it happened to you. But usually all the professors are going to go through rules about that. And quite honestly, practice with your closest friends and then maybe move up. Find a professor that you like, talk to them, speak to them of reciting and sharing your poetry. And then as you practice that, you'll be more comfortable with being vulnerable. Vulnerability is going to be such a powerful tool. So don't be afraid of it, but don't feel forced to use it.
Great. Yeah, and I want to affirm from the perspective of a professor that importance of setting some ground rules in any workshop about, what we're focusing on. Genevieve taught a course on cliche, right? So, presumably that's what the other readers were talking about when language is and isn't cliched. So you can handle that even if the writing is very personal. Creative writing clubs on campus. There's a literary magazine, Spoke the Thunder. You're more than welcome to check them out and submit work to them. There have been at various points spoken word clubs. I don't know if there's one right now during a pandemic. That's kind of a group activity that might have be on temporary hold. Lydia, you got to come to the mingle if you want to meet the other majors. Don't worry, we'll have another event, hopefully at a time you can make it, and you'll meet the other creative writing majors. We also try to put creative writing majors together their first year we set aside seats in certain sections of 202 so that they can meet each other. Because it's important to build a community. Counting credits from a professional writing personal essay course over toward the creative writing degree, definite possibility. We just want to take a look at the syllabus and do the magical thing that Liz McCrae knows how to do in degree works to make it count toward a major. So we're absolutely happy to include courses you've already taken elsewhere. Follow us on Instagram. Sure. Any other questions? And I know some of our panelists probably have to go, so we need to wrap it up. But thank you so much for coming. You have my email address. You also have the general program address. And good luck to all of you, whether you apply, whether you don't apply, you know, good luck to all of you as you go forth and, you know, make yourselves heard.